Mike Owens here. Today I'm joined by Kenny Florian, former UFC World Title Challenger and now part of the fantastic commentary team over at the Professional Fighters League. Kenny, always a pleasure to get your time. How are things with you today?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
I've got you on today to get a little bit of a breakdown, a little bit of analysis of the upcoming PFL semi-final shows. Um, I guess I want to take a little step back for the start and just kind of say, what have been your overall impression of the PFL 2023 season so far?
Yeah, I think it's been a great season. I think we've kind of upped the ante as far as the level of competition yet again this year. So each year we see a bump up in competition, not only because of the competitors themselves and how they're gaining much more experience and getting better all the time, but also I think the hiring of getting new talent into the PFL is not only motivating, but it's forcing everyone else to really up their game and level up. So it's been great. It's been very enjoyable.
Little bit of a technical difficulty there, but we were talking a little bit about the PFL 2023 season so far. Has there been one division that has particularly caught your attention?
For me, I'm always most intrigued by the lighter weight classes. The featherweight division, of course, is the one that is probably most exciting to me. The featherweights and the lightweights, and of course, I'm probably a little biased because I competed in those weight classes, but that's really intriguing to me, just because of my past, but also I think the skill level is probably at its finest in the PFL in those two divisions and the welterweight division as well. I think that's probably the case in every organization. The lighter weight class is the guys where you find the most amount of that average male, 170 pounds to 145, even 135 pounds. I think there's a tremendous amount of competition, and because of that, we've seen a lot of drama, particularly in the featherweight division, where we saw the upset of Brendan Loughnane. Jesus Pinedo ended up getting a huge win by knockout in round one over Brendan Loughnane. I think it's one of the biggest upsets of the year as far as fights go. And yeah, I thought it was an amazing performance.
You took the conversation towards Brendan Loughnane, which was a point that I wanted to mention. Brendan's a personal friend of mine, and I can remember when, after the knockout, a couple of days after it, the message I sent to Brendan was I basically tried to get across to him that be proud of what you accomplished in 2022 because this highlights the difficulty of the tournament, to highlight how difficult what last year was. What does the Brendan Loughnane's KO loss say about the difficulty of the PFL tournament formula?
It speaks volumes. I think people don't realize the intensity of the training volume, the intensity of the training schedule that these fighters have. They're putting a tremendous amount of load on their bodies when it comes to wear and tear, managing injuries, managing your tapering, managing your peaking towards fight night. And those things are extremely difficult to get if you have months in advance to prepare. Having 1 month, a month and a half turnaround between fights is extremely difficult, and especially given the backdrop of what Loughnane accomplished last year, it is it is quite the hurdle to get over for each and every fight. And I think it's there is the competition itself. There is the training of that. There is, all everything that goes into a fight, right? There's the mind, body, spirit aspect, and getting all of those things right and not expecting any injuries or any things to get involved on a personal level with your personal life. Like, people forget about all those things, and the fact that you can win a world championship in the PFL is remarkable. It's extremely difficult. To do it back to back is even more difficult. So for anyone who's ever had, four professional high level mixed martial arts fights in 8 months or less, knows what that's all about. I don't. I don't. I can imagine, but it's a beast. It's extremely difficult.
You mentioned there about having a particular keen interest on featherweight and lightweight, obviously the divisions that you competed in. Out of interest, when you look at those divisions and you look at the tournament over certainly this year and also last year, how do you think you would have fared in your prime?
Yeah, that's something I think about a lot because I didn't have that ability to do that. I think if I did that early on in my career, I think I would have been okay because I was a little younger, my body was healthier, all those things. But later on in my career, while I was a better fighter, a more technical fighter, a smarter fighter, a more experienced fighter, um, having that schedule back to back to back, I don't know how my body would have responded to that or how I would have managed my training. I mean, there's the BJ Penn fight where I definitely overtrained. I did so much training in preparation for that fight and just peaked way too early. Felt like I was going into chronic fatigue syndrome. But, anyways, I don't know how I would have managed that training load, for a PFL season. I honestly don't know. I think I probably would have gotten it wrong at least once. It's such a beast. It's such a difficult thing to manage, and you know, doing it for the first time and not having coaches that have done it before with other fighters makes it that much more difficult.
Of course. Obviously, there's a lot of big names on this card. Bubba Jenkins, as we talked about, Movlid Habalayev. But one thing I want to talk about as well is obviously with the absence of Brendan now being out of the tournament, with Kayla not competing in the 2023 season, I think the PFL is maybe lacking that superstar name for some of these cards. I
Yeah,
guess when you look at the competition, who do you think has the best chance to become the next PFL season superstar?
yeah. Loughnane was a huge star for us. Losing him, I think it was tough. But at the same time, it always injects new talent into the conversation and perhaps opens the door for more stars to emerge. Now, as far as who the favorites are, I think Mobley Hubalayev is one of the guys that you got to look at. Bubba Jenkins, of course. Jesus Pinedo. I mean, getting that huge win over Loughnane now is going to take him to new heights, confidence wise. But as far as from what I've seen, Movlid Habulayev is going to be a tough matchup for anybody, just based on the fact that he can strike and he always has the option to put you on your back and beat you up there. So I think anytime you have that superior wrestling ability, either to keep it on the feet or take it to the ground, it gives you that many more options to win a fight. And Habulayev has a tremendous amount of experience now. He knows how to get it done. He's clearly very durable, and he's got to be one of the favorites for sure.
Then in the conversation, I guess, from the next future PFL superstar to a current PFL superstar, obviously news broke this week of Francis Ngannou's matchup against Tyson Fury in the boxing ring. What is your overall reaction to this fight, and is there any part of you that wishes he had stayed in the PFL smart cage?
Yeah, I think for Francis Ngannou personally, the way I feel about the fight is number one, I'm extremely happy for him. Number two, don't doubt Francis Ngannou and what he wants to achieve in his life. He was very
Yeah.
committed to doing this. This was something that he really wanted for his career, and he's going to get it. Everything he wanted, from the big and mixed martial arts contract to the big boxing fight, he's going to get. So I'm very happy for him on that front. Generally speaking, and number three, I don't like seeing athletes compete outside of their domain of specialty, right? We can't get it twisted that Francis Ngannou is a former UFC world heavyweight champion. He's a champion in mixed martial arts, and I think that while one of his specialties is certainly knocking people out, taking on a behemoth and one of the best heavyweight boxers of all time in Tyson Fury is quite the challenge. Now, Francis seems to thrive in this underdog role. He
Yeah.
always seems to surprise people, whether it's him competing against Cyril Gahn on one leg with a completely torn knee and pulling off a win, or getting that contract that everyone doubted him about, or that boxing fight. So just getting into France from Africa. The things
Mm.
that this guy has accomplished over the course of his career is nothing short of inspirational and amazing. So I'm cheering for him in that end. But man, competing against Tyson Fury in a boxing rules fight is going to be extremely difficult, obviously, for him to pull off. There's no boxer on the planet that really has Tyson Fury figured out at this point. Can Francis Ngannou do it? I don't know. I would lean towards not, just based on Tyson Fury, his experience in that domain. However, Francis Ngannou is not to be underestimated, and if he hits anybody, it usually doesn't go well for them. So I'm curious to see what happens. And I'm just really excited for Francis and everything that he's accomplishing right now in his career.
When you look at kind of the PFL and the Francis Ngannou relationship post Tyson Fury fight, in what ways do you think that this partnership and this alignment can, in some ways, change the sport?
So I think the very clear one is the fact that when someone sees that a UFC heavyweight, former UFC heavyweight champion is signing with another organization and making even more money outside of that organization, it gets people to really start to think, okay, there are options outside of just the UFC, which is obviously the biggest organization in the world. Now, if you're trying to build a brand and you're trying to build a fight promotion, um, getting people to know that they can make a lot of money outside of that gets people thinking about this. And I think we slowly start paying these guys, we start getting these guys recruiting either upcoming talent or existing talent from the UFC and bringing them over to the PFL and paying them extremely well. And then people start to realize, well, wait a sec, maybe it's not exactly clear that all the talent is over in the UFC. They have Francis Ngannou, they have Movlid Habulayev, they have Brendan Loughnane, they have Bubba Jenkins, they have all these other great fighters over there. You're telling me I can get the challenges that I want and I can make even more money in a shorter amount of time fighting for the PFL? Huh. So I think really the way you entice people in general is with economic incentives, financial incentives. This sport is extremely difficult. Um, and there's very few people, for example, that can make $1 million over the course of, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. If they're a good fighter or a great fighter or an elite fighter, they can make $1 million in under 12 months. Not a whole lot of places in the mixed martial arts space where you can do that and do that on a consistent basis. So I think that once fighters start realizing that they are professionals, that they are prize fighters, they can start to realize, okay, the UFC has a lot of the hoopla, but maybe I can be a part of this newer organization, make a ton of money, and we can kind of rise together with everybody. So I'm curious to see how it pans out, but I think there's going to be a whole lot more people that start to make that move, and at the very least, start scratching their head and going, wait a sec, how much money do I want to make over the course of my career, and for how long? Because the reality is that your career can end in an instant. The sport's too difficult and too hard on your body. So I think it behooves anybody to really start thinking about, how do I maximize my money with the time that I'm given, or that I hope to have over the course of my career.
Love it. Kenny, I'm very conscious that we're limited on time, so I've got one final question for you. You're one of the finest minds in the game, one of the finest media personality commentators, I should say, with the PFL. You've also got your fantastic podcast with John Anik over at the Anik Florian pod. I'm actually 12 episodes into a podcast myself with UFC bantamweight Rob Font. So we're just kind of finding our feet, maybe trying to emulate you guys in some aspect.
Awesome.
What is one aspect you would say in a way that somebody like me can improve and get to a sense the way you're at in your career?
For sure. I think the main thing is allowing that passion to flow through you and to communicate in a way that you would if you weren't on camera. And I think that's kind of what we're all trying to accomplish, I guess, when we're putting on an enjoyable sports TV show, is how do we um, how do we sound like almost fans ourselves? How do we make it exciting, intriguing, and how much can we truly give our opinions, and communicate that to the fans, where they want to listen and they trust us and our opinion. So I think that's the main thing, is making it a fun, almost bar-like conversation as you talk about the sport and have a good time doing it. And I think if you're doing that and you're able to have that passion transmit through the podcast or through the show, I think that's where you start to really gain a whole lot of fans. So, yeah, I wish you the best of luck, man. It's a lot of fun, and yeah, I'm sure you'll do great.
Fantastic. Duly noted. Thanks for the advice, Kenny, and thank you for your time today to break down this PFL semi-final season. I wish you the best of luck with the rest of the commentary, and I look forward to watching you in action on the big screen.
Thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate it, man.